Warning, the following audio transmission is based on theory and is intended for entertainment purposes only. It's Doomsday and its affiliates will not be held liable for anything your dumbass does. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to It's Doomsday Podcast. Today is November 15th, 2024. Time is 20:01, and joining me is the awesome, the mysterious Safe Prep. What's going on?
Evening, everybody. How are we?
Good evening, Safe Prep.
Are you as disappointed in disclosure as I am?
What do you mean disclosure?
Aliens, man.
Oh, you know,
Big guy.
Okay, you'll have to explain this a little bit to me because I had a buddy text me asking me if I knew about the aliens, and I'm like, no, I have a job and I do things all day. What did I miss?
They had, and they've had a few of these before, but the House Oversight Committee had a UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, hearing yesterday where they had like 4 guys testify and basically told us again that aliens are real, but they can't show us.
So aliens are real, but they can't show us.
Yeah, and they're in the ocean. That's where they're at, apparently.
Aliens are in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't show them to us, and they know where they're at.
Yes.
Oh, well, I mean, you know, I said last year, a common question that might be asked in the next 5 to 10 years is, have you met an alien yet? I said that last year, that within the next 5 to 10 years. So right now, the next 4 to 9 years, somebody might ask you, have you met an alien yet? That might be a very common question. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, the email, itsdoomsdaypodcast@gmail.com. Tonight's topic is one that was listener requested. So this was a listener requested episode. And it is the topic of Civil War and how one survives the Civil War. Yeah, man. Are you ready for this?
I had to do research and like write down notes and use actual handwriting. And
You have actual show notes?
yeah, but I'm probably going to read them off my phone because I can't read my own handwriting. You know, I work in EMS.
Yeah, there you go. So, ladies and gentlemen, just be, you should be alarmed because this is a non-scripted show. So this could go any way. But I think we should talk about some things that might lead up to the Civil War before we talk about the idea of surviving it. Yeah.
I agree.
So I think the first and foremost thing that's on everybody's mind is the idea of politics and the separation and divide that could lead us into civil war, right?
Absolutely.
And we've watched this country go to shit. In the last 5 years, so much has happened, okay? And we've watched the separation and divide continuously take place over different multitude of different things, okay? Red versus blue for one. You've had the George Floyd incident and so many incidents like that, and it caused outbreak around the world, civil unrest around the world. And I do think that the pandemic had a lot to do with that particular incident because everybody was on edge to begin with, and they were waiting for that. The fuse was lit. They were waiting for something to make the bomb go off, type thing. And we watched the Chop Zone out in where was that at? Was that Washington?
Yep.
Okay, so we saw that take place where citizens took over a few city blocks, and we've seen.
Or might have been Seattle. Might have been Seattle.
Seattle is in Washington.
Well, that would make sense. Let me go to my map.
It wasn't Kenosha. That was where the Rittenhouse incident went down.
Old Rittenhouse.
Yep. So, like I said, there's been a lot of incidents that have taken place over the last 5 years. So the idea that we could get ourselves into a civil war, I think, is very, very likely. It's very, very possible. And I think we need to be very, very careful of how we tread forward based on that information.
Well, you've got ideological versus geographic. So is it blue fighting red? It's not necessarily going to be the North fighting the South, because we're all just a big montage of, we're not sure that we're a nation. We're a country with many nations in it. But so ideological versus geographic, you've got urban versus rural, normal folks versus the elites. There's a whole lot of different groups that could be going after one another. And I think we always fall back to the blue versus red, but I really don't think that's it.
Well, okay, so you remember after 9/11, we had a lot of people going after people within the Muslim communities.
Yep.
Okay, if you were slightly darker than the white man, and you were of what would you call that? Middle Eastern descent, or no, Eastern descent, Middle Eastern descent, maybe. You kind of had a target painted on you, right? Everywhere you went, and a lot of people were attacked, harassed, and we just saw this recently with the whole with all the Jewish individuals, the Jewish students, things like this. We just saw this recently again after Hamas, the war with Hamas in Israel. So we saw this just take place, okay? And it could very well, it doesn't have to be red and blue. It absolutely doesn't have to be. But I guarantee you the aisle will help separate the divide. Which side of the aisle you fall on will bring this to fruition, I think.
Absolutely. And as far as locations, I mean, ideologies clash more often in city centers. So, and I think most of us as preppers think that, if anything kicks off anywhere for any reason, it's probably going to start in the cities. So you got that to look at. But there's just so many groups that could go after one another. It's kind of exhausting to think about.
Right. Well, I mean, how you said the cities, though. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Your downtown area in front of Town Hall, in front of the courthouse, where the protests are, where they're starting, that's going to be ground zero for a lot of these events that get sparked up, okay? And that's how it starts. And it makes its way through the city, and then it spreads out into the suburbs and then into your rural areas. But the rural areas don't get it as bad in any capacity. That's why I choose to live in the rural areas and not in the freaking city. That's partly the reason,
Yeah.
But, yeah, so let's talk. I think we should bridge this into two different categories from here on out. I think we should go into what could be the potential dangers you have to be worried about with the Civil War, what could go wrong, and then how to prepare for this, how you can survive this, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to let you go first. What kind of problems do you think we would be facing?
Well, we think through, I hate pausing. We think through all the different types of scenarios because it really depends on who's fighting and where they're fighting. Is this a civil war that's unlike the Civil War of the 1860s where we still go to work, we still go to school, we still have interstate commerce? Are we still doing these things? Everybody's not just at home warring. They're living their lives.
Wait, hold on. On that point, I think it will be everything is getting shut down, essential workers only, because the government needs state of emergencies and they need things shut down to operate now. When you have FEMA come in and taking over, they want everything to stop.
Absolutely.
So, I think it's essential worker only. The people that need to be working are working and nobody's going to school.
The other scenario is how, depending on how big and widespread it got, would we still have communications? Would we know what is going on in the rest of the country? Would we even know that conflict had started or civil unrest had started? Because we're obviously manipulated. There's propaganda. The Chinese control some of our apps, so we're going to see what they want us to see and not see what they don't want us to see. And it's difficult to make decisions, preparedness decisions, or safety decisions if you don't know what's happening.
Right. I agree.
Cyber attacks, if we still have the internet and electricity, you got to worry about cyber attacks. So communications, utilities, water, electric, banking, airports, you name it, those are going to be, they can be very easily attacked just on the cyber end and cause a lot of havoc.
Right. And that's a good point, too. I mean, a lot of us have been jumping over to the Starlink, right, in regards to that. But if there was a Civil War outbreak and they would attack those ground locations, you're screwed. You know, I mean, that's just kind of the way I'm looking at that is they, if they wanted to, they could stop all communications.
Absolutely. Martial law, that's a whole episode in itself right there.
It is.
And that would really, the extent of that would really depend on how unified the federal government remained. You go back to the way FEMA responds to some of these big natural disasters, and I can't help but think that martial law might also not go so well for them. By the time it gets to that point, all the other bad stuff underneath martial law that happens, just general civil unrest and no law and order and criminals doing what they want to do without consequence and marauders and all that stuff. I'm doing a lot of talking. You gonna jump in there?
Oh yeah. I was waiting for you to stop. You know.
No, it's your turn. It's your turn. Go ahead, sir.
So everything you say, I 100% agree with. That all these things could transpire. However, I think that I think the government will remain pretty tight. And the reason why I think that is because their employees are going to eat. Their employees are going to have protection. Their families are going to get fed. Their families are going to have the protection. Their families are going to have the satellite phones and the communications. So these employees who want to stray away and say, hey, I'm going to go rogue, I'm not doing this shit, and they leave and they go somewhere else, well, they're sacrificing safety, food, shelter, everything. They're sacrificing that. And I mean, if it was me, depending, because I do have a moral compass, and if depending on what they were asking me to do, I would probably go rogue. But if it was a situation where they were like, Dooms, we need you to go up and down the street with a megaphone and just yell at people telling them to get back in their homes. I'm like, that's all I got to do? Yeah, but you might get shot at. Okay, it's happened before. Okay, let's go. So that's probably how that would go. But if it was a situation where they said, hey, you got to drive up and down this road and you got to tell people to get back in their homes, and if they step out that front door, you shoot them, then I would say, no, I'm out. We'll see y'all later. I'm gone. It's all about the risk versus reward. And for me, it's risking the moral side of things, which is why I'd be like, nah, I don't think I'd do that. So I think the government would stay pretty tight knit, but you got to understand, with that being said, the government is only so big. They can't control every single city. They can't control every single little town.
So we're already seeing it now with the increasing division between red and blue. States becoming much more independent in what they're trying to accomplish. So I think that would continue at the beginning of a civil war. You would see states go to sides, and you know, states might put the safety of their citizens ahead of national unity and do all they needed to do that. So when we talk about civil war, you think about the entire United States. But the battles are fought in your backyard, you know, in your city, county, region, and state. So, and that's where it's going to affect us. You know, something going on 1,000 miles across the country, if we know about it, we still have internet, don't really matter. It's what's happening right outside your back door.
Oh, I agree 100%. So I got to watch FEMA operate firsthand here recently. And saw some of the disorganization and what goes on. And I got to tell you what, I would not put faith in that agency if there was a civil war taking place. Let's just say that. The citizens are going to have a handle on things quicker than the federal government will on their own soil. Okay?
Absolutely.
That's just the way it is. They will be immobilized quicker and getting stuff done quicker, and the bodies will probably be buried before these guys even show up.
Yep.
Okay? That's kind of the way I look at it. So I think, some of the dangerous side of this is, and I started to see this with this recent disaster, and I've talked a lot about this on the show in previous years. Everybody's on a medication for something, okay? And when things break bad, these meds are going to stop, and no one's talking about it, but I got to see some of it firsthand during the Helene disaster. And let me tell you, when you have a country that's already at civil war and people come off their anxiety meds, their depression meds, things that are keeping them from being homicidal maniacs, and you add the stressors of these things, the violence we're going to see. Everybody's going to wake up in the morning and choose violence. That's what's going to happen. Short, simple, sweet. That is what's going to happen. Okay, so I think maybe I think we covered a lot of the dangers. You got more?
No, I've just what I've got left here is what to expect. Some other things we could expect: economic disruption, obviously, depending on the scale. Food, fuel, essential items, supply lines, an increase in prices, an increase in inflation.
Oh yeah.
They're going to run out of stuff because they're not going to be able to get it. The prices are going to go up. The looting's going to start. So going back to basic preparedness, just stuff, having the things you need and having a stockpile at home. Something else to consider that we may have to take into effect is migration and refugees. So depending on where the war-torn parts of the country are, you may have people migrating to more peaceful areas. And now you got to deal with everything that they need. Foreign aid, the UN, their involvement, other countries getting involved. Should we go to civil war? I think that's pretty much a guarantee. Obviously, we would be at our weakest during a civil war, and it would be a prime time for an attack or an invasion. So just so many things to consider, man, and it's hard to think of all of the scenarios. And maybe that'll get us back down to how do we really prepare? Because how do you get your family ready for something like this?
Right. No, that's exactly right. But okay, so let's talk about how to prepare for this. So first off, ladies and gentlemen, you're gonna prepare for this just like you would any other disaster. Everything Safe Prep just mentioned: food, water, shelter, security. Okay. There's a newer prep that I want people to start thinking about, and I didn't really hear people talk about it. I heard this from a friend that's down in Florida that went through the disaster of Helene and Milton, rolling up through there and screwing everything up. And they said, Dooms, I had to dig a hole and poop in the yard. And I was like, oh yeah, you didn't have a plan for that? And they're like, no, we literally had to wait till it got dark to where the neighbors couldn't see us, and we'd dig a hole and poop in the yard because we couldn't flush our toilets. And I'm like, huh. And it really got me thinking that, when these disasters do strike and the grid's down and everything's non-functional, your septic services are also offline. I did a show a while ago with a gentleman, and he said, it's a really good idea to install a valve in your septic line so you could shut it off. That way other people's septics don't back up into your house. That's genius. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But the idea of having something as simple as a composting toilet or a bucket toilet seat with, I don't know, a bunch of garbage bags, you take the dookie in the bag, you tie up the bag, you throw the dookie away, right?
Here's the biggest thing that can help people. Do not mix your poo and pee.
Don't mix your poo and pee?
Do not. You want your pee separate from your poo, because you can manage poo, but when you mix it in with pee, that's when you get off-gassing and odor and those types of things. It's the urine that causes the problem, believe it or not. So if you're digging a hole, just be sure you're digging two of them.
One for the pee and one for the poo.
One for the poo.
Okay. So, yeah, just something else to think about, guys. A lot of services will go offline. Your internet, your power, your water, your septic, your garbage services, all these things are going to shut down. Okay? Because if you're on a street that's say heavily populated and there's a lot of problems, garbage men ain't coming. Okay? The internet guy's not coming to fix those lines. They're not going to put themselves in harm's way to take out your Chinese takeout wrappers, right? They don't care. That shit's going to stack up. Also, another part of this is, guys, depending on what type of year this is, whether it's winter, summer, fall, spring, you have a whole nother set of challenges that you have to worry about. Because, again, are you going to be out splitting firewood while there's gunfire? No, probably not. So something to consider in that regard. But I think that the biggest thing for me with this is getting this stuff done so you don't have to leave your home, because an automatic is you leave your home, you're putting yourself in harm's way. Right?
Absolutely.
So just like we'd prepare for anything else, stay home. Don't bug out, bug in if you can. Unless the danger is at your doorstep, you stay home. Right? And then there's the idea of hardening your home, hardening that home. Okay? And I mean, we could do a whole episode like on these individual little things we're hitting. These are entire episodes. So don't,
Absolutely.
if you're sitting there listening to this, and you're saying to yourself, well, I don't know why they didn't cover more of that, because that's an entire episode that we've probably covered in the past anyway. So I think that if you're going to actually fully prepare for the Civil War, guns, ammo, first aid, get good at it, a lot of trauma-based things, a lot of blood clotting things, right? Do prepare to suffer an injury. Do harden up that home. These are your givens, right? But again, these translate back to every other disaster.
Yep.
There will be life loss. Plain and simple.
I think the medical care and medications, it's an area that we all struggle with, because if you're not in that business, I mean, we're in EMS, Chester, but we're not doctors, and when it gets that bad, who knows if the hospitals are even open, and from all the apocalyptic fiction books, I mean, you may be going to see a vet or something like that. So having the first aid supplies, having a prepper library where even if you don't know these things, you can look it up in a print book. And doing the best you can to stockpile medications, which is also a whole nother episode. That's a difficult thing to do, and it gets expensive. And there's even though you can get some medications, you can't get all of them, and that's going to be a big deal.
Right. So there was one thing I did want to get into with this as well, and that is compliance. And I hate to say this, but if your primary goal is survival, compliance is your key to survival. The people who are going to get the fresh drinking water and the meds and the insulin and the grandma that needs the oxygen, these are going to be the people that are compliant. Okay, so you are gonna face some really hard truths during this scenario, during this event, because when the grid goes down, and like I mentioned, grandma's oxygen, if she's on a condenser and just has one backup bottle of oxygen, just, for overnight, if there's a storm, whatever, that's not going to last you. That's not going to last her, weeks of civil war or months of unrest where the power grids failed and this, that, the other. And there will be shelters set up for people, right? With a guarantee, there will be shelters set up that will have security outside those doors, that will have to arm people protecting the citizens within their walls, right?
Yep.
That's how that'll go. And the reason why I say compliance is key is because nobody is going to want to deal with somebody that's unruly and give them things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
That's just it. That's all it is. So just think about that. How far are you willing to go with compliance? Are you going to turn in all your guns? Are you going to give up all the food you have for the greater good? Like, are you going to open your doors to people? Are you going to let the government come in and take what they want? Are they going to declare this a war zone and you have to move out for your own safety? And if you don't, they're going to force you out? Like, what are you actually willing to give up for that survival?
Yep.
Because there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there, man, that have that mentality of the government will take care of us. It'll be fine.
No.
No.
Our government struggles to do anything efficiently, so they would struggle to do that as well. And the truth would be, and if you were having a lot of civil unrest locally, civil disobedience, I'm telling you, you're not going to have law enforcement. You're not going to have a fire department. You're not going to have an ambulance service. And the people that are going to be helping you are going to be neighbors. It's going to be people in your community, but you're also going to have people coming after you in your community. And that's when, if you haven't formed a community yet, I'm not saying that you have to join a prepper group, but you need to know your neighbors. You need to know who you can trust before you have to trust them. That doesn't mean you have to tell people what you have, or that you're a prepper, or that you're going to help them. But just knowing your neighbor, those kind of things are going to keep you safer when it gets dangerous.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And you will have your militia groups form. Okay? It will be neighbor helping neighbor. These things will happen. It's amazing in the time of disaster how tight-knit people can become.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Do you think, what else you got? You think we covered all these bases? You think we got some more?
Like you said, we should have done, that was like 18 podcasts in one very short show where we didn't go into very much detail.
Right?
But I'm telling you, we talk about this big stuff. We talk about the apocalypse. We talk about Civil War, the EMP, the really big things. But the way we get ready for those is getting ready for the small stuff. Floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, all that stuff. And it's been a long time since the last Civil War. I don't think the next one's tomorrow. We don't predict what's going to happen. We just like to hypothesize and think through scenarios so we can be better prepared. We shouldn't be nervous about it. If you're fearful of it, then you should be getting ready at the pace that you feel comfortable getting ready at. Can all of us be ready for everything? Absolutely not. And in the end, circumstances are going to get you, and all you can do is try to be a little bit better prepared tomorrow than you were today, and you have to be okay with that.
Right. No, I 100% agree. So just so everybody's out there, that if you're out there and you're listening and you're asking that question in your head, well, what if it's a revolutionary war? Same rules apply, except we're fighting the government. Okay, same rules apply. That's it. So we're not going to do a separate. Show for the revolution.
I honestly think a revolutionary war is much more likely than a civil war. And that's a whole other episode in itself.
Well, the government does keep pissing people off, man.
So, and they're lying to both sides. So the waters are muddy. They'll continue to be that way. I'm just waiting for the aliens to come rescue me.
I hope that is the case, that the aliens do come to rescue us. So I'm going to leave the next topic up to the listeners. So we covered so many different little key points in this idea of civil war, but it's the fact of the matter is it's going to suck, and you're going to prepare for this just like you would for any other disaster, except the difference is there might be a lot more bullets flying than there would versus a hurricane or an earthquake or a volcano, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a lot worse in the sense of life loss, I would think, because a battle is ongoing. A hurricane, a tornado, it's a big event, and then it gets calm. The problem with the Civil War is this is ongoing. And nobody can determine how or when it will end, right?
Absolutely.
So it'll just keep moving, and it'll keep building momentum and moving forward until something shuts it down. But you, the listener, need to send an email. It's doomsdaypodcast@gmail.com, and you need to let us know, out of this episode tonight, out of all these little bases we covered, what do you want to hear more about? Because that's what we should do our next episode on.
I'm game.
Let the listeners pick the next one. I'm here.
I'll tell you what I did order this week. It's kind of Civil War-ish.
What's that?
I've been looking for a good small unit tactics book.
Small unit tactics book.
Yeah, like war-y, tactically stuff. How to be an effective team if you're trying to eliminate a threat. So
okay.
I got a book coming from Amazon that I'm pretty excited about getting to
what
be
did I
as
order?
ready as I can.
I ordered rappelling equipment this week.
Really?
Yes.
I've rappelled twice in my life, I think.
Well, it looks like it's going to be something that I might have to start doing for work, and I'm terrified of heights. So I got with one of our guys that's a really, really good expert level guy, and he said he would work with me. So I went ahead, I ordered a harness and some different things and a helmet because, need a helmet.
I'm not scared of the heights, but I'm terrible at knots. So I'm gonna stay away from rappelling.
Yeah, I'm not the best knot tire either, man. I'm getting better though. Anyway. All right, that's all the time we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for chiming into the Doom Daily Show. Safe Prep, what's all your social media stuff?
Oh, just find me on TikTok at Safe Prep on YouTube, and that's pretty much it.
And you can find me everywhere at Jester Dooms. We're out of here, guys.
This is an emergency action message. At approximately 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, NORAD is tracking 15 ICBM nuclear missiles inbound to the following cities: Orlando, Miami, Pittsburgh, Dover, Newark, Richland, Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Boston, Seattle, Detroit. This is an extremely deadly situation. Stay tuned. The next emergency message will be a presidential address.